All right, everyone, it's time to talk about the National Popular Vote Compact that Maine just signed on to. It's the idea that whoever wins the popular vote for federal elections gets the electors from the state, so for the presidency. And people gripe about it mainly from just a general political perspective. Well, the liberals are trying to rig the vote, although I would note most of the states that are signees to the compact are deep blue anyway, so it doesn't really tilt things in any particular political direction because we already know how California and Maine are going to vote. Well, Maine, we're not 100% sure. They're doing that to try to cock-block Trump more than anything else, but, at the moment. But it's really more a dereliction of state duty. The 10th Amendment gives states supremacy. Most of the laws and regulations you're subject to, if they don't come from a bureau that has become too expansive, they come from the state. They don't come from the federal government at all. And a lot of people, they direct all their ire at the federal level without realizing that oftentimes what they're grappling with is the state. Like, you're much more likely to get imprisoned by your state than by the federal government, unless it's like tax evasion or terrorism or something like that. It's probably a state matter. State prisons are overcrowded. Federal prisons do a little bit better, especially because they get such high budgets. Low-risk offenders, white-collar crimes, and things of that nature. Fraudsters and embezzlers and things like that. You would much rather go to a federal prison than a state prison. I've talked to people who've been in both, and they'll say, the worst, though, are county jail. Because then you get all the drunks and derelicts and stuff like that, so don't expect a good night's sleep. A low-level state facility would be better than that, but not by far. Now, here's the thing, though. The states predominantly set up their own election rules. Sure, there's like the Civil Rights Act and things like that, and the federal government tries to make sure through regulation that people that are eligible to vote can, people that are ineligible to vote can't. They're derelict on the latter matter, but no more about that. Mostly, though, the states set things up. They set up how electors are going to be doing the election and what kind of voting machines or paper ballots or whatever, their voter ID laws and things like that. And that's because while it's sometimes unfortunate, like a state can massively expand its mail-in system to try to rig an election, generally speaking, that was the way it was supposed to be. States are responsible for most of the day-to-day functions of government. They have their own agencies and bureaus and police and all of these other things that they do. It was understood when the United States, by the way, not United State, plural, states, was incepted. The idea was that the states would generally have the power. Originally, they had the Articles of Confederation, which didn't work too well, and they had to rewrite the system a little bit to have a little bit more federal supremacy because the initial system wouldn't have worked too well. The states, of course, printing their own money and guarding their borders as though they were sovereign nations and doing all sorts of other things. And so you have the Interstate Commerce Clause and stuff like that. That cleaned it up. Created more problems than it solved, arguably, and maybe a mixed system between the two would have been a better compromise, but in the end they hammered something together that generally worked at least up through the Civil War era. Up till the antebellum era, if it weren't for the slave debate, then there wouldn't have been any problems. Probably would be a better country if they hadn't gone through with that particular compromise. They might have had to fight a war at first. That would have been problematic as well, but, hindsight is always 20/20. The compact is a dereliction of the state's duty. Effectively, what this would have been to the liberals out there, to the liberals that hate watch me. Let me posit a situation. A bunch of blue states or lean blue states have signed on to a national popular vote compact so that their electors will go to whoever wins the national popular vote. Let's say Trump wins the national popular vote. Are you comfortable with electors from Hawaii or California being forced to vote for Donald Trump? Being forced to cast their vote for him? Even though the people of your state probably went 70-30 in favor of Joe Biden? What about you New Yorkers out there, or people in any of these other states that have signed on to the basic premise? Are you saying that the people of your state shouldn't effectively have a vote? Because that's what you're ignoring. You're ignoring their particular will. Their electors are state. They're not federal. It was never meant to be a federalized system. The United States was not incepted that way. Originally, it was even more state-centric than the current system is now. Originally, it was almost entirely state-run. The federal government was effectively non-functional at first. That's why they had to change the system. Then they slowly devolved more power. The Senate was originally elected by state house legislatures and not by a popular vote, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The number of justices on the court has changed multiple times. It hasn't changed in 100 years, but it did fairly rapidly at times. And as presidents did what Biden wishes to do, which is stack the court, which is also a terrible idea and would set a heinous precedent. the second that you get a president that happens to be Republican. The liberals would cry foul about it. It's just like when they decided to make it a simple majority to vote through people that were going to be put on federal courts. I warned at the time to the Democrats, this is going to bite you in the ass, and that's exactly what it did, and now they still debate over it. It's like Citizens United, any of these other decisions. Everyone's always so happy when it benefits them. Second that it doesn't, all of a sudden it was a bad idea. I'm still trying to put that genie back in the bottle. If you go through with a federal level national popular vote compact, you could have a strange situation where the people of a state that leans deep red or deep blue are effectively deprived of a vote at all. Effectively, their vote would not matter. It would mean absolutely nothing. This is a good way to alienate rural America. It's a good way to alienate urban America should things swing in the other direction, as they currently, by the way, are. We might see an election this time around where Trump wins the popular vote. It's perfectly within the realm of possibility due to differential voting trends, and if you look at the polling, and probably a boost for him anyway, because the polls tend to overshoot for the Democrats, and they're definitely doing it this time around, Trump could win the popular vote. Are you telling me that every voter in California should be ignored in their will to vote for Joe Biden? That's basically what you're telling me. It's a dereliction of those states' duty to hold that supremacy. Some people say, well, it's the states' rights. They have the right to do this. Absolutely. Insofar as doing, they are ignoring their constituents, potentially. The constituents will be generally perfectly happy under such a compact if the election goes in the direction that the people of that state wish it to go. If it doesn't go in that direction, you have a big fucking problem. You're going to end up handing Trump all of these states if he wins the popular vote? So he gets what? What do you get, 350 electoral votes or something like that? It'd be a landslide. Simply because two people in Iowa decided to vote for him that were going to stay home. Trump wins the popular vote by 50 votes. All of a sudden he gets 100 extra electoral points or something like that. That's what you're trying to do. It's a terrible idea. It makes absolutely no sense. You could get 400, it's popular. It's possible. It's a terrible idea. It makes no sense. It's also a solution that's looking for a problem. There's never been a problem with the general electoral system anyway, except in states where it's close to 50-50, like the 2000 election in Florida. Half the population is going to be, shit out of luck and sad no matter what the state Supreme Court decides, and it was kind of premature, and that election was probably the most botched in U.S. history. Remember the hanging chads and the dimpled chads and the pregnant chads and things like that? That was a very, very strange time. I was just old enough to understand how funny it was at the time. There's a reason why Florida's a running joke election-wise. Leans red now, but for what it's worth. The idea is a dereliction of state duty, and nothing more and nothing less. And it posits a situation in which a person, by winning a bunch of votes in other parts of the country, can run roughshod over the electors in your state that your people want to represent them and their wishes. Having it devolve to the state level, hell, you should devolve it further. You should have a county-by-county electoral system. Should be for state elections too. Yeah, absolutely. Razor Fist has the right idea. That's about all. Peace out.